Roll call. Jerry, if you note, all planning commissioners are now present. With Ron representing the county board. Item one is the correction approval of March 23rd minutes. And PJ, I guess you want to kind of lead us through how you think we need to correct this.
Sure. After the memo and the item was put on the agenda, we heard from the commissioner's office that if we're looking to rescind the minutes, we actually have to write that in the agenda as a course of action, and we did not. And
it has to be published, I assume.
Yeah, so we're just basically not going to do anything with number one today.
Okay. Doesn't that affect approval of the April 13th minutes to item 2? Isn't that all tied together, or we just approved the?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you just have to move forward as is for now until we make the corrections later.
Okay. Okay. Move forward then with item 2, approval of April 13th minutes as put it in the packet. Do we have any corrections, additions, deletions, other than dealing with
number 1?
With number 1. We'll deal with that with resending in a future meeting. Anything of note? If not, entertain a motion for approval of the minutes as published.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion to approve the minutes is carried. Approval of the agenda. When we do the agenda, it's with the agenda as published and on the shelf. It also includes the consent items. Today our consent items are items 4 through 7. We'll first go to the Planning Commission. Is there anyone from the Planning Commission who wishes to have any of those items pulled for discussion? I've got a brief question on 4, so I'll request to pull 4. Okay. Any others? If not, before we go to the audience to see if there's items to be pulled, PJ, if you could read items 5 through 7 then for the record.
Sure. Conditional use permit 1507 for Linda and Harlan Eisenbraun to allow a single-wide mobile home to be used as a single-family residence in general agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 1507 with 8 conditions. Item 6, rezone 1502 and comprehensive plan amendment 1502 for Mitch Morris to rezone 151.36 acres from general agriculture district to light industrial district to general agriculture to general commercial district, and to amend the Pennington County Comprehensive Plan to change a future land use from limited agriculture district to general commercial district. Staff is recommending to continue rezone 1502 and comprehensive plan amendment 1502 to the May 11th Planning Commission meeting. Item 7, rezone 1503 and comprehensive plan amendment 1503 for Mitch Morris to rezone 424.42 acres from general agriculture district to suburban residential district, and to amend the Pennington County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use from limited agriculture district to suburban residential district. Staff recommends to continue rezone 1503 and comp plan amendment 1503 to the May 11th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting.
And those items 5 through 7 are on the consent calendar, and I'll read the paragraph. The following items have been placed on the consent calendar for action to be taken by all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by the planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for consideration. The findings of the planning commission our recommendation to the Planning County Board of Commissioners to make the final decision. With that, I'll open up to the audience if there's any items 5 through 7 that you wish pulled for further discussion. If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the agenda with the consent items 4 through 7.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 4, I guess, since I asked pull it, just a quick question, I guess, on recommendations for, staff's recommendation for approval of conditional use permit with 12 conditions. I just, guess, clarification on, it says building permit be obtained for any structure exceeding 144 square feet or located on a permanent foundation. What do we consider a structure? Is a hot mix plant a structure? Are they having to get a building permit for the plant itself? That's a structure. I don't think that's the intent, is it?
It's not the intent, no. We've permitted anything over 144 square feet or with concrete foundations for pergolas, carports, residences. Is the plant on wheels? I mean, it's hauled in and hauled out.
Well, I know, but it's not saying temporary or permanent, except, it's just saying over 144, and I'm guessing the footprint of
But is it
a
on
hot
permanent?
mix plant is probably, I mean, like even in the staff comments, due to the temporary nature of the land use, floodplain development permit isn't necessary. So I mean, I'm just, I guess I want to make sure that they're covered, that, if we're calling that a structure, so they're aware of that.
We have not in the past.
Well, I didn't think so, but I guess I'm just asking for clarification if we need to.
We can look into it, but
On these hot
we haven't done
plants
those
or-
in the past, no.
Okay.
No.
That's the only question I had. Any other questions for staff, or anybody need any further reading of that? Since I asked to pull it, I guess I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 4 for staff's recommendation with 12 conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. That'll take us to item 8.
Good morning, Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Director of Planning. Item 8 is a major plan unit development amendment 1501 for John and Barbara Marjak, High Country Guest Ranch. Currently, this amendment is consisting of 3 lots, Lot 12, Lot 10, and Tract A on High Country Guest Ranch. That does come to a total of 14.42 acres. The existing land use, as I said, is High Country Guest Ranch. Major Plan Unit Development Amendment 1501 was originally heard by Planning Commission on April 13th. However, at that time, we did have to continue it to make further notifications as required. The original request included Lot 10, Lot 12, and Lot A of High Country Guest Ranch subdivision, and then also Tract A. But on April 13th, the applicant contacted the Planning Department and requested to remove Lot A from the amendment request, so now it only includes Lot 10, Lot 12, and Tract A. He also did make a request to change the request that he was making for Tract A. That larger portion down here is Tract A. He originally was requesting to reduce the setback from 25 feet to 5 feet on all sides. He now would only like to reduce it on the front side, rear side, and west side to 5 feet. He would like to keep this side that abuts Lot 15 over here. He would like to keep that at 25 feet because this is a residential lot to the east. So the original planned unit development for High Country Guest Ranch was approved on March 22nd, 1993. There's been several amendments to this PUD since. The most recent one was approved for a minor planned unit development on the 22nd of September 2014 with 26 conditions. Currently, Lot 10 of High Country Ranch subdivision is zone plan unit development. That is this lot up here in the northwestern corner. It's 1.5 acres. It contains 4 rental cabins, a detached garage, a shed, and a single-family residence with a deck and a gazebo on it. Lot 12 is this piece of property right here. It's also zone plan unit development, 2.72 acres. It contains a private single-family residence, a lodge building that includes their guest registration, a retail store, a dining area, and administrative offices. And then it also contains a retail building that's used for gift shop and ticket purchases. It has an old shed and 2 stables on it. Tract A is zoned planned unit development. It's 10.2 acres. This lot currently contains 6 rental cabins, a stage, a brick wall, merchandise sales building, a ticket booth, 2 restroom facilities, and a concession stand. This request was routed through the interdepartmental review process and no significant issues were raised. So staff is recommending approval of major plan unit development amendment 1501 with 29 conditions.
Questions for Cassie? I guess just a suggestion. I mean, you pointed out which lots were, but it would have been helpful in the packet if the lots had been labeled.
Sure.
So. Any questions? Staff's recommendation is for approval of 29 conditions. I'd entertain a motion to that effect if there's no questions.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 9.
Item 9 is minor plat 1506 and subdivision regulations variance 1504 for Mark Fullerton JMF Properties. This is a request to create Lot 2A and Lot 2B out of Lot 2 of Tramway subdivision and to waive a few platting requirements. This lot is currently 31.67 acres and is vacant of all structures. The applicant is requesting to create lots 2A and 2B from this existing lot. Currently, Lot 2 of Tramway subdivision is Zone General Agriculture District. It's 31.67 acres. It is vacant, and there is currently no access to this property. Proposed Lot 2A of Tramway subdivision would be this this subdivision, the divide would come right down here. Proposed Lot 2A would be the western portion of this property. It would be Zone General Agriculture. It would be 15.466 acres. A lot size variance request has also been submitted and will be heard by the Board of Adjustment on May 5th. It's vacant of any structures. There currently is no dedicated access. However, the plat does identify a proposed 40-foot wide ingress-egress easement off of US Highway 16A or Iron Mountain Road to be created when the plat is filed with the Register of Deeds. This would provide access through Lot 2A to Lot 2B, which would be this eastern portion over here. Lot 2B would then also be Zone General Agriculture District. It would be 16.201 acres. Again, the lot size variance request will be heard by the Board of Adjustment on May 5th. It's also vacant of any structures, and as I said, that easement that would be created with the plat would allow access to Lot 2B. The applicant has indicated that there's no utilities on this property and no improvements will be made on it. The Mount Rushmore Historical Society has plans to purchase proposed Lot 2A to preserve the existing conditions for scenic views of Mount Rushmore. And Rushmore Tramway, which is JMF Properties, will continue to own proposed Lot 2B with plans as well to preserve the land. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process and no significant issues were raised for the plat. The subdivision regulations variance, the applicant has requested to waive 3 subdivision regulation requirements. Number 1 would be the section line right-of-way improvements in accordance with subdivision regulation 500.5. The section line runs down the southern portion of the property down here along the southern property line. And it runs across large rock outcroppings and heavily wooded areas. There's no plans to make improvements on either of these lots. So, and the ingress egress would be off of that proposed easement, which would come right through here. So the section line would not at any time need to be improved at this point. The second subdivision regulation that they are requesting to waive is on-site wastewater treatment system preliminary evaluation. There are no plans to make improvements on either of these lots. There's no existing on-site wastewater treatment system and none are planned. percolation tests, soil profile information, and design of an on-site wastewater treatment system would be required prior to submittal of a building permit if they were to decide to improve the lot at all. And the third regulation that they are requesting to waive is location of utilities. Again, there's no existing utilities on the property, no plans to make any improvements or install utilities. The installation of utilities would also be required prior to submittal of a building permit. No significant issues were raised with the subdivision regulations variance request during the interdepartmental review process. Staff is recommending approval of subdivision regulations variance 1504. And also, staff is recommending approval of minor plat 1506 with 2 conditions.
Questions for Cassie? I guess, I had a 2B, is the only access they would, legal access they would have is by the easement that's being created? They don't have access currently to that?
No, currently there's no access.
Okay. Other thing, not so much a question, just interesting comment by DOT. This is what DOT was hoping for when we sold the property. I thought that was, perked my interest on the interesting history that may be there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Jim?
So the Mount Rushmore Society simply wants a piece of property to view Mount Rushmore. I mean, they don't have any intention of putting in a parking lot or a viewing stand or whatever?
This is the applicant.
Yeah, no, they don't have any plans to do anything with the property right now, other than the fact that.
If you could state your name for the record.
I'm Jeff Howe, I'm with AE2S, I'm doing the plating for the property. Other than the fact that they just want to make sure that nothing happens with the property because of the views of Mount Rushmore. Don't want anybody to come in and develop the area or anything like that, so that's the whole main purpose of them purchasing the property. I was gonna note that I did do a plat from Iron Mountain Road across the other DOT property to the west, so they get access to this property. That's been approved and filed already, so. The easement that's shown on here connects to that, the one that goes across that parcel to the west.
We don't have that, do we?
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Staff's recommendation, would you like 2 motions?
Yes.
Handle the first one, recommendation for a subdivision regulation variance request. Staff's recommendation is to approval of the subdivision regulation variance SV 15-01. And entertain a motion to that effect.
So,
You take it, I'll second.
okay. I'll move that then.
We have a motion and a second, I believe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Recommendation for minor plat PL 15-06. The staff's recommendation is for approval with 2 conditions. Again, I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10.
1 second to get it up and running here for you. Item 10 is rezone 1505 and comprehensive plan amendment 1505 to rezone .65 acres from suburban residential district to general commercial and to amend the Pennington County comprehensive plan to change the future land use from suburban residential to general commercial district. The applicant is Krebs Partnership LLC, Donald Krebs, who is in the audience today. The size of the property again is .65 acres, currently used as residential and currently zoned suburban residential. The main impetus for this rezone for the subject property from suburban residential to general commercial is so that the applicant may and the owner may obtain a state's dealer's license for the purpose of buying, repairing, and selling automobiles inside the enclosed structure, which on this picture on the screens is the one behind a single-wide mobile home. Again, the property is 0.65 acres, currently zoned SRD. Future land use is also SRD. Structures on the property are the single-wide mobile home, which was put on the property via permit in 1998 and a conditional use permit in 1998. If the rezone and comp plan were approved, the property actually would be in violation, and the applicant would need a conditional use permit to allow a single-wide mobile home in a general commercial district, and also as the, here we go, as the structure exists today on the left side, or the west side of the property here, it meets general commercial setback, suburban residential setback requirements. If zoned to general commercial, it would not meet those setbacks, and the applicant is aware that he would also need to obtain setback variance for that structure. The conditional use permit for that single-wide mobile home on the east side of the property, as stated, was built in 1998 with a conditional use permit and a building permit, and was reviewed only on complaint basis. Since 1998, the office has not received any complaints, and this conditional use permit has not been reviewed on that basis. Within a half mile of the property, let me get to the zoning here. What I'm showing up on the screen right now is a combination of county zoning, which the legend is on the top left of the screen, and city zoning, which is on the kind of the middle to the bottom left of the screen. And if you can see the yellow line that kind of comes down through here, over and up, this area in here is all county. This is all city. And there's a little bit of a city here and a city here. Current zoning within a half mile of the subject property as far as the city is concerned is low density residential, medium density residential, general commercial, and general agriculture. Within a half mile of the subject property, county zoning is suburban residential with lots ranging between 0.2 and 38 acres, general commercial with lots ranging between 0.46 acres and 34.07 acres, and limited agriculture district down here in the bottom right of 4.02 acres. Pioneer Road, this access point coming straight down the middle here, is approximately, as far as the width, about 40 feet here, and anywhere between 23 to 25 feet going down the distance of Pioneer Drive, culminating about 23 feet here by the subject property. The applicant, again, wants to rezone the general commercial, and according to our subdivision regulation variances and requirements of our zoning, the road width would need to be 32 feet for general commercial. Just note there is general commercial across the street, which was established in 1972. There are 54 lots in this kind of peninsula here for the county. Most of them, as you can see, are suburban residential district. There's one general commercial from 72. The property is not being used in that capacity, as I understand it today. And if approved, this would be the second general commercial lot in that area. The road width, again, meets the SRD standards, but does not meet the general commercial standards. In 2002, property just in the northeast of this area here it has a conditional use permit for a home occupation from 2002, but a rezone from suburban residential to general commercial was denied pursuant to planning staff's recommendation in that same year. The requests for this rezone and the comprehensive plan amendment were routed through an interdepartmental review. The only item that came back was when the comprehensive plan amendment was routed to the city, and I'll read the statements from the city planning department. The city's future land use identifies the appropriate use of a low-density neighborhood. The proposed zoning request is not in compliance with the city's future land use. In addition, Pioneer Street is not constructed as a commercial street to accommodate potential commercial traffic for future commercial development of the property. An analysis of the property by staff shows that within 0.2 miles of the property, there is a mobile home park up in this area, zoned suburban residential. Within 0.2 miles of the within 0.05 miles is where the mobile home is. Within 0.2 miles of the subject property, essentially this area here and over here, there is a feed and agriculture store, auto sales, convenience store, gas station, liquor store, strip mall, casinos, gas and go, financial services, salon, and a car wash, all zoned general commercial. All the above mentioned land uses appear to indicate a general commercial district is appropriate in this area. Access to the, let me get back to an aerial here. Access to the subject structure would actually be off of the lot just to the north, which the applicant owns as well, through this access point here, which is a maintained road, which you can see in in the image here. The two lots were platted back in 1957, and during staff's research, staff looked for an access easement from the northern lot to the summer lot, and one does not exist at this time. Staff did discuss with the applicant the possibility of a home occupation. However, the criteria of, and what the applicant wants to do, he does not meet the criteria set forth in 24 OC of our zoning ordinance. The applicant's proposed use is compatible with the general commercial district as listed in section 209, item 23. And if rezone 1505 is approved, the applicant would have the opportunity to submit for a sign permit on the property and on the structure. Per the current land use and zoning, it appears rezoning the subject property to general commercial is appropriate in the area. However, Pioneer Drive does not meet the minimum width requirement of 32 feet of paved surface for an area zoned general commercial, and in addition, Rapid City's future land use map indicate this area as residential. For these reasons, staff cannot support the request to rezone the property. Staff recommends denial of rezone 1505 and comprehensive plan amendment 1505.
So first, questions from staff and the applicants here, then we'll go to the applicant. Questions for PJ?
Mr. Chair, I have one question, PJ. You said that the applicant does not currently meet the criteria for a home occupation. What?
He'd have to live on the same property, and he does not.
Oh, he does not live there.
He lives, go back here, Mr. Krebs, I don't refer to him as he, lives on this, in this structure, in this house right here.
Okay.
So he owns both, but they're not developmental. And this single-wide mobile home right now is used as a rental.
Okay, thanks.
Could that be converted to a developmental lot?
They'd have to be sold together prior to 1994, continuously.
Other questions for PJ?
Mr. Chair.
Laura.
PJ, what do you know what the commercial use was for the lot across the street?
I do not, no.
Because I can't really see
No,
what
I do
kind of
not.
structures on there. I don't think we have a map that shows us
I know the
that.
applicant has talked with the owner. He may have an indication. Again, it was platted back, it was approved in 72.
You said it's currently not being used as a
According
commercial
to what
property.
the discussions with the applicant, yes.
I guess I have a comment. One of the staff's comments is to secure access from one lot to the subject lot, the applicant may want to file an access easement from the Register of Deeds office. I guess my dealings with the city attorney's office and with the Register of Deeds in the past, and I would defer to Kinsley, but you cannot grant an easement to yourself, is what I've been told.
Okay.
Kinsley grew up from the state's attorney's office, correct. You can't, if you own the two properties, you can't have an easement from a property that you own to that other property that's right next to it. So if he was selling off that,
Yeah,
the
that was
property,
my understanding. If you sell it, then at
Yeah.
that time you can do it.
at that point, it would be
But change,
appropriate to
the
do.
wording was bad.
Okay.
I know the concern in both commissions is usually access to a property, especially if the applicant does choose to sell either one in the future.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. But I guess, I mean, as it exists right now with him owning both, he could not create the easement right
Right.
now, is my understanding, so, okay.
Mr. Chair.
Karen.
In your staff report, you refer to other rezone requests and development, and you refer to tax ID number 11432, which is up closer to Highway 44. And I know that that piece of property has come before us several times, and we did, I believe, the last time it came before us, vote to rezone it general commercial, and it was denied by the county board. And I'm just curious to find out, I wonder if Commissioner Buskerud remembers that piece of property? It's the Mills
I remember,
Brothers.
This
there's
one right
been a
here.
few of them down in that area, but I can't remember that specific one.
This is the Mills.
The Mills
This
Auto.
one right up here,
Auto.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just, you look at the surrounding, and I know there's some commercial along 44 there, but I think it was just because it didn't fit the area. And looking at the looking at the pictures, I think it may fit the area, but
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to look at, and I didn't go down and look at what's surrounding the rest of it.
Thank you.
The rezone request in 2012, there were considerable complaints that came in on the property for the rezone, not necessarily for, there were some complaints that came
Right.
in for the home occupation CUP that they had.
I believe those neighbors have moved.
I'm unaware.
Fundamentally,
Good question,
one
though.
neighbor
Good comment.
really.
Are there questions for PJ before we go to the applicant? And if the applicant wishes to speak, if we have no more questions for PJ?
Donald Krebs. And I guess I can answer the question on the one you were just talking about on the Mills property. The one neighbor that was next door there was his biggest problem. And they have since moved. But as far as mine, everything would be contained in the building, and it wouldn't actually change anything more than what's there right now. You wouldn't notice any difference in the property.
Questions for the applicant? So you aren't expecting any outside activity?
No.
Even as far as sales or?
Well, I would probably, if I did 10 cars in a year, it would probably be quite a few. I'd have maybe one to two at a time, and everything will be inside the building. And I might have somebody driving in once in a while to look at a vehicle, but it's not like I would have, my intent is not to start a car lot. I just want to obtain a dealer's license because according to the state, if you buy and sell vehicles, you need to have a dealer's license.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Jim. Questions for applicant?
I have a question of Mr. Krebs here. Tell me again what the business model is here.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to buy a couple of cars and keep them in there and then sell them? Is that the idea, or?
Yes. I would like to buy one or two cars at a time, and I do small repairs on them, nothing major, but small repairs, and then I'll turn around and sell them.
Okay. I recall the mill situation. I think that originally that was the intention. Everything was going to be confined by the building, and times got tough, and all of a sudden vehicles were too big and too cumbersome to put inside, and so they were doing work outside. I mean, that's a very tidy property, and we would hope it would stay that way. But so I'm suggesting that I hope we're not opening a Pandora's box here, where all of a sudden.
I would not do that. And in fact, I don't have the resources to, do anything like that. At this time, I'm not retired, but I've been just kind of working on my own the last couple of years. I basically was the place that I was working at sold, and I have not, that's been about 2 years ago now. And so I've been just kind of working at home and doing some small jobs.
Yeah, okay.
Since that. And like I said, there's not any plans ever of doing more than maybe 2 cars at a time, 10 to 12 cars a year possibly. And it may not even be that many, but I would keep everything inside.
So your neighbors appear to be either in support or indifferent to your
The neighbors,
efforts?
I have talked to quite a few of the neighbors. In fact, I had some calls on it, and nobody had any problems with it. Nobody had any, reason to have any complaints on it. In fact, the neighbor my next door neighbor, he said, I don't know why they wouldn't, allow you to do that. He said, you've always kept everything in shape, so.
Right.
Mr. Chairman. And that's very true. And the minute you sell the property to someone else in a zone general commercial, that same guy will be complaining about what's going on then. Because once it's rezoned, it's rezoned. And, I mean, he's got the best of intentions, but the guy who buys it from him might not have. That's the problem.
That's a concern I had. I was going to bring up, so it's the same as Commissioner Leskud. Once it's general commercial, it's general commercial. I remember a situation in town that everybody said, oh, that's the use we want. That they've been there forever. They're going to be there forever. They rezoned. They weren't there forever. And all of a sudden the neighbors are complaining. for the business that came in after the property is sold. That's why I was kind of asking on a developmental lot, I guess it would take replatting and then, you know, a conditional use permit, there's a little more control than if the property gets sold, you know, it's, that's where I'd rather see it go, as a conditional use permit than a home occupation. But I don't know, it's not, we're making it,
Yeah, we did
You would
discuss,
have-
we did discuss consolidating the two.
you'd have to replat the lots.
Replat the lots, and then also, conditional use permits are, you know, what they are, just apply for those and see what happens. But, I mean, that's
I
still
would
an
be
option if you want
perfectly
to.
happy with condition, in fact, that's what I would rather do, is do the conditional use permit and leave the zoning the same, but we decided that would, I'd have a better chance of getting it rezoned than the conditional use permit.
And the city might want to annex it as far as when plating occurs.
And I don't know that we can actually replat it, can we?
The city would,
Okay,
the city would.
okay.
It would be up to them.
But now, if there's a chance of getting a conditional use permit, but I had to have a hardship since I'm living,
A variance. would
Yeah.
need a hardship.
yeah,
Not
So-
necessarily a conditional use permit, but
okay.
if the two lots were together, you'd need a conditional use permit for the single wide, because you'd basically have two residents on the property, as we discussed, and then a conditional use permit to have the home occupation in the detached garage, because then at that time, if it was consolidated, you'd live on the property and would meet that criteria. That's pretty much the only criteria is not meeting as far as a home occupation. It's not on the same property.
Is that something that we could work around possibly to do the conditional use permit?
Could
I-
ask for a
I
variance.
would be
I would
fine
like
with
to
the
see that
conditional
much more, but.
Yeah.
I
Jim,
would
did you have a
agree.
question?
Yeah.
Or
No, I think this is one of those situations where Mr. Krebs really doesn't want to do, start an auto lot, and yet he wants to, and the only provision is that he define himself as an auto dealer, basically, and that we don't have, except for the home, occupation perhaps, a way of defining what his activity is going to be, short of making him a car dealer, and that would seem to be, if he moved to a home occupation type situation with a conditional use permit, that to me would be far more preferable. And it would guarantee then that in the future, there would be some control over the property if somebody came in and bought it and said, yeah, I'd like to buy 300 or 400 cars and put them out there, that's, so I would support that approach far more than this, I think.
Mr. Chair?
Karen?
How much would it cost him, PJ, to do a conditional use permit and a developmental lot or whatever?
We'd first have to do a variance request to be able to allow for home occupation on a separate lot.
And that's $300?
370 plus
375.
mailings again, and, yep. Trying to think how many mailings you had.
There was 23 mailings, I
23?
believe.
Yep. And then the conditional use permit after that fact.
And how much has he already paid for the rezone request?
What's the total, grand
They're-
total?
I think they're both almost the same
About the
price.
same.
It
Yeah,
was
but
like,
$440.
440?
Yeah, something
Plus
like that,
mailings?
yeah.
Could we apply the fees to the next?
You could recommend that,
Yeah.
and then go before the Board of Commissioners.
I would like to recommend that.
What is your time frame? I guess?
Well, the sooner the better, but I guess at this point, I've got to do whatever I have to do.
And like I said, I would have the same concern as Ron.
And I understand that. And that was my thought originally too. If I rezone this to commercial, that's not gonna stop. And I plan to live there for quite some time, but nobody lives anywhere forever, and it's just the way it is. But, my plan isn't to change anything the way it is, but somebody else could come in there and say this is a commercial lot and we're gonna, and that was, one of the neighbors called and she said, you're not gonna start a garbage service there, or you're not gonna, and I said, no, I said, nothing's gonna change. So she said, okay, she said, I'm fine with that. But that's not to say that somebody else down the road can't come in there and do that.
Mr. Chair.
Lori?
PJ, could you repeat what you said about if it gets annexed?
It's contiguous with city limits, and during plating, they'll usually annex the property.
Oh, okay.
Would they, excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Pretty much automatic, isn't it? If you're contiguous to city limits.
Yeah, there's a lot of
replat,
people.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No,
It would trigger an annexation?
yeah.
So that would,
What would that
implies
do
some
is-
cost that
Additional use permit from the
Which the
county.
applicant does not want to have done.
doesn't want to be part of Rapid City. Okay.
We're going to be, I'm sure, soon, but I'd rather not at this point.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else from the audience wishing to speak to this matter before we go further?
There's one.
Gentleman in the back? So. Yes, please. If you could give him the podium. Thank you. State your name for the record, please.
My name's Stan Freed. I bought the property that was in question before, I think right next to Mills. And so I'm the next guy
The one to the south?
to the south, yes.
Okay.
I was just curious if there's going to be any signage that's going to be put up on that property, if that goes
If
through.
it goes general commercial, they could.
It could, yeah.
Okay, is there restrictions in the county to do what?
Defer to
put up there or
PJ.
not?
There are restrictions. The applicant would have to file a sign permit with our office, and he just couldn't do it. We'd have to look at it, make sure it's appropriate for the area.
But there is restrictions as far as size and.
Yes, but general commercial is less restrictive than other zoning
Okay.
districts for signs.
All right. And the second question is kind of off the topic of this, but the Mills property, how come that's not in red?
It was never rezoned general commercial.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
No, it's home occupation.
Okay.
Rezone was
All right.
denied.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Laura, I guess Karen, you started, it sounded like you were willing to offer a motion?
Well, I'm still very unclear about what the future would be if he decides to go for a conditional use permit. What would be the procedure? Would the city be involved? Would he have to replat?
No, would not need to replat. The first thing he would have to ask for is a variance to allow a home occupation on a separate lot, because he's
Okay.
asking for something that the ordinance does not allow, which would possibly set a precedent. Then the conditional use permit to allow the home occupation on the subject property.
Okay.
I know we've had that discussion as far as home occupation, a lot, you didn't allow one, but it wasn't contiguous to the other property they owned. It was remote to the property
Right.
where they lived. And I can see that being problematic, but
Yeah, home occupation is one of the defining factors as you live on the property.
I guess the two concerns I have is, once it goes general commercial, it opens it up to quite a variety of things.
Correct.
And especially when you're saying the one that's in red and along Pioneer there that was, 72 and not being used commercially right now, I guess, I know there's general commercial in the area, but I see that strip of road as being residential, is the way it's zoned and generally is. So I guess, I don't know if general commercial fits in the middle of that. If it's on the highway, like
Yeah.
most, I would
agree.
be
That's
less
one of the-
concerned. Any other questions or comments? Anyone else from the audience wishing to speak?
Mr. Chair, I move that we deny rezone 1505 and comprehensive plan amendment 1505 without prejudice, with the hope that Mr. Krebs will look for a conditional use permit instead.
How about with the recommendation that he would?
Sure.
Are you saying recommendation to waive fees to,
Yes, to waive fees.
I guess,
I would second that.
Jerry, you want to read that back so we're clear on how?
Thank you.
Yes. I have moved by Hall to deny without prejudice and seconded by Coleman to deny the rezone and comp plan and to support the applicant's request to waive the fees to move forward with a conditional use permit.
Would that also be fee?
Understanding
I'm sorry.
Pardon
Would
me?
that also be fees for the variance request?
No, what?
You guys think about that?
Those would be two separate permits.
Should we waive those as well? I'll move that we waive those as well, for discussion.
You're amending the motion to add.
We can't waive fees. We recommend to the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
that we
Correct.
waive fees. Sorry, overstepped.
Support. Support.
And You were the
I'll
second, okay.
that, yeah.
So motion and
That's all one motion, or are those two?
That's
Just one?
one.
Okay.
This one.
Yep.
we formally have to vote on the amended version of that.
Amending it.
Motion, we have a motion and second to amend the motion to add recommending waiving of the subdivision variance fees. Any further discussion on that? All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is amended, so we were back to the full motion. So the motion, again, do we need to have it read back, or does everyone understand? Jerry?
Moved by Hall and seconded by Coleman to deny without prejudice the rezone and comprehensive plan amendments and to support the applicant's request to waive all submittal fees, then?
Recommend, I think is
Yeah,
the word
to
that was
recommend.
used.
Recommend. Okay.
Waive fees for the CUP and the
And the-
variance.
That's correct.
And the variance, yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is then carried. Item 11.
Cassie Bolstead again, Pennington County Assistant Planning Director. Item number 11 was continued from the March 23rd Planning Commission meeting. It is a vacation of easement request 1501 to vacate a 60-foot Forest Service access easement on lot 67 in Canyon Springs Preserve. The applicants are Brandon and Lindsay Noble. They are here in the audience today. The size of this lot is 1.77 acres. The existing land use is vacant. The applicants are requesting to vacate this Forest Service access easement located along the western interior of lot 67 of Canyon Springs Preserve. This lot is currently zoned plan unit development. It is 1.77 acres. It's located within the Canyon Springs Road District and Sanitary District. It's currently vacant of any structures, and this Forest Service access easement is located along the west property line, and it was placed by the plat of Canyon Springs Preserve from Plat Book 33, page 190. As an update to this, on the 23rd, Planning Commission did recommend to continue this vacation of easement request to today's Planning Commission meeting in order for additional comments and information to be received from the Homeowners Association and Sanitary District in Canyon Springs, the U.S. Forest Service, and the County Fire Coordinator. On April 14th, staff did request additional comments from the Forest Service, County Fire Coordinator, Canyon Springs Sanitary District, and the Canyon Springs Road District regarding this easement. I did speak with Rodney Brown of the Forest Service this morning. He made two comments to me. I had posed the question to him on who owned the gate. He did comment to me that the gate is owned by the Forest Service, but did also make the additional indication that the easement as it exists right now does not belong to the Forest Service. So in terms of the easement, it is a private matter from the U.S. Forest Service standpoint, but they do own the gate. At the time of this staff report writing, I have not received any additional comments from the Canyon Springs Sanitary District. I did pose some questions to the County Fire Coordinator in terms of, from a fire standpoint, if himself or the Doty Fire Chief were concerned with getting access to the land behind Lot 67 in the event of a necessity or an emergency. The fire coordinator on April 15th did comment that according to the U.S. Forest Service, they do not have any concern with access through this gate and have other means of access. That's okay. However, since there is a gate there which could allow access to U.S. Forest Service property, I would ask one thing. County Fire has no objections to vacating this easement. However, the property owners should not build, place, or block access to this gate in the event of an emergency. What I'm saying is I don't mind the easement vacation, but just don't want property owners to build a fence, yard decorations, or something similar. This would not have to be the full 60 feet, just keep a 10-foot access lane to the gate available to the fire department if needed. He also did comment on the fire flows. He did mention in his previous comment that there are low fire flows in Canyon Springs. He said the fire flows have to do with fire hydrants, and any home constructed in the west end of the subdivision must have residential fire sprinklers installed at the time of construction. On April 15th, I did speak with a member of the Canyon Springs Road District via phone. He stated that the existing easement does not lead anywhere because the Forest Service gate is locked, and any access taken to the Forest Service lands at this time is not approved by the Forest Service. Since they have stated that they don't want individuals crossing the gate. The member that I spoke with further stated that the gate is located on lot 67 simply because there was a gate, or the easement is located on lot 67 just because there is a gate there. Because I had asked him if he had any information as to the intent of the easement being on lot 67 specifically. Because there is a common lot area identified on the plat directly to, it would be the east of this property. Right here is what's identified as a common area on the plat. So I had asked why the easement would not be on the common area, and he had stated it was simply because of the location of the gate. He also stated that he would prefer that the gate not be unlocked because it would not only allow people from Canyon Springs to access Forest Service land, but it would also work in reverse and allow people on Forest Service land to come into Canyon Springs, which he had indicated is a concern for some of the residents up there. I did request that the comments that were made during our phone conversation be submitted via email, and at the time of this staff report writing, I have not received anything in writing from the member that I spoke with on the phone. Staff did further review the plat of Canyon Springs Preserve and did verify that there is an 8-foot minor drainage and utility easement existing on all interior lot lines for all lots located in Canyon Springs Preserve. And that is also on the plat filed with the Register of Deeds that would have also put this easement on this lot. On April 17th, staff did speak with the applicant Brandon Noble to discuss the option of reducing the 60-foot Forest Service access easement to have it mirror the 8-foot drainage and utility easement that is already located on the lot. The applicant stated he was not in favor of reducing the easement in lieu of completely vacating it. He had stated that the main concern is not buildable area, but rather that the easement does not lead anywhere without legal access to Forest Service lands, but still allows people to access his property. The applicant stated that he had contacted the South Dakota Department of Agriculture Wildland Fire Division to discuss the vacation of easement, and they have no objections as this easement is not on their maps that are used for fire response. You all should have received a copy from Mr. Bubb. It is an unsigned letter from Ray Bubb, the division chief. So that is included with your guys' packets. The applicant at that time also did provide staff with contact information for the president of the Canyon Springs Homeowners Association. Staff did request comments from the president of the Canyon Springs Homeowners Association on April 17th. And at the time of this staff report writing, I have not received any comments back from him. And on April 21st, staff did receive a letter from a landowner in Canyon Springs asking that the vacation of easement be continued to allow landowners the opportunity to explore other access options if this vacation were to be approved. That letter should be included with you as well. And also this morning I did receive another letter from a landowner in Canyon Springs supporting the vacation of easement, which I believe that letter also was passed out this morning. So staff does recommend continuing vacation of easement 1501 to the May 26th Planning Commission meeting in order for staff to receive additional comments from the Canyon Springs Sanitary District and the president of the Canyon Springs Homeowners Association, as I have not heard comments from them. However, if the Planning Commission does choose to approve vacation of easement 1501, staff recommends 5 conditions.
I've got a question, I guess, like, suggestion, the different associations haven't responded, but I know when we continued to this meeting, I don't know if we ever checked when their normal meetings are, and I'm sure the president of the association doesn't want to speak without basically approval of their board. on it as a, otherwise he's speaking as an individual. So if we aren't coordinating with their meeting dates, I can see why they'd be reluctant to offer comments.
And the comment, or one of the questions that I had posed to the homeowners association, I had simply asked if they had discussed this at any of their other meetings, if it had ever actually been formally voted on.
Do we know when their next meeting is?
I don't.
I guess, well, I'll go maybe the others. I've got a bunch of questions, I guess, and some of them comments. I guess, like, to me, easements, special easements aren't put on a plat lightly, so I don't think they should be waived lightly either. And I guess the other concern I have is, maybe it's semantics, but, to me, the Forest Service access is a descriptor, not a noun. And it's being interpreted as that's a noun, that it's for the Forest Service. I think that's just the general people saying you're going out in the forest, that's Forest Service land, So I think it's more a descriptor than a noun. And so, I mean, that kind of creates some difficulties there. And I guess I'd like to know from the original platter, creator of the plat, what the original purpose was of that plat easement before lightly dismissing it. So I guess I'd go open up to other questions. Karen.
I have a couple questions. Cassie, do you know the common area that's adjacent to this lot? Do you know what the southern border is like? Is it like the access from this lot that we're talking about now, or is it steeper? Or, I mean, would there be reasonable, if they moved the easement to their common area, would that be problematic in terms of getting out?
I was going to see if I have a picture. You can kind of see it a little bit over here. When I was out there doing a site visit, it didn't appear to be any different terrain than what is behind lot 67, but I didn't cross the Forest Service gate, so I'm not sure if, at some point it drops off a little bit steeper, but from what I could see, it appeared to be roughly the same terrain.
And it's just a barbed wire fence?
Yes, it's a
Forest Service boundary.
it's a barbed wire fence and then the gate that's there.
It seems to me that this whole issue could be really simple if the Forest Service put the gate in before Canyon Springs was platted, and they put the easement in there because the gate was there. Why don't we just move the gate to the common area? And I'm sure that the applicants would probably be happy to pay to move the gate if the Forest Service didn't want to pay to do that themselves. And that would fix the whole problem. Then the common area would be the access. And this poor Kathleen Minton, who has, all sorts of people trespassing across her lot to get to that gate, wouldn't have that problem either.
I guess, Jim, do you have questions?
It seems to me we haven't had one person really come up and say, this is really important, this access. This gate is really important. I mean, everybody seems to be either dancing around it or simply saying it's really not significant. And I think Karen's suggestion of simply moving the gate and thus moving the focus of access and so forth would be a simple solution to the problem. Because I don't see any reason why this needs to be there. I mean, I haven't heard any compelling argument by anyone up to this point. So I don't know if we can
Well, and I've got a,
do that or not.
well, and I've got, I guess maybe I need to get educated, but I mean, like, there's a lot of Forest Service gates that are there to stop vehicular traffic, but they're part of the Centennial Trail even, So I mean, to me, that doesn't necessarily preclude pedestrian traffic. And I guess, there's a comment in here, to me, I kind of question too, is if I've got a lot and I'm abutting Forest Service, that means I can't walk across that line without getting an easement from the Forest Service onto public property or public lands. I understand the vehicle access and, cars, four-wheelers, even mountain bikes, but I would question the pedestrian traffic.
And I guess I'm not sure from the standpoint of individual landowners crossing. I think the concern here with the Forest Service is a large amount of people crossing at this point. So I haven't specifically asked the Forest Service in terms of individual landowners crossing what their feeling on that is.
I agree with you. It bothers me that the Forest Service is saying, you know, I don't want people walking out on your own land that we own.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, have access to the
That does
public
bother
land.
me. I understand the vehicular too. But the other thing that, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
You know, when you buy a piece of property and you look at the plat and it's got an easement on it, you know, if you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't buy that property. That's for one thing. And number two is if I buy a piece of property out there and they say, you know, here's this easement that you can walk, you know, and get on land, and then all of a sudden, a month later, it's, no, on second thought, you don't have it anymore. Well, that's part of the inducement that induced me to buy that land, and I hate to take those things away from people who, I mean, I read some place here that was a concern of somebody. And I kind of appreciate that, but I would really, and number three is by taking away this easement, if the gate stays the same, it's not going to stop people from driving up there. Because these people that are driving up there across that property don't know if there's an easement or not. They're just looking at the nice, quick way to get up there. But I would be in favor of reducing the size of it. 60 feet is quite a bit.
I think there was a discussion last time as far as, you know, reducing that. And then there's testimony too from other landowners in the area saying that that was their inducement to buy is access to Forest Service to hike. I know we may hear that again today, I don't know, or I don't know if other people are waiting, you know, assuming we're going to continue this too, so. Other questions for Cassie? If we got the applicant here, go to the applicant first. Other questions for Cassie? If the applicant's here wishing to speak, or?
Good morning, I'm Jared Tomac. I'm counsel for Brandon and Lindsay Noble, the applicants. I want to address some of the questions that you asked, but just a couple of comments first. Firstly, we would respectfully oppose the recommendation to continue just because this matter is up here now for a second time and everyone has had notice of the first, notice of this, and people aren't here to oppose. But moreover, I don't think the continuance is necessary because the commission has all of the information necessary to decide this matter. As staff had indicated, the easement is a private matter. It's not a public easement. In order to create a public easement, there has to be a dedication to the public and there has to be an acceptance by the public, and that didn't happen. So the only maximum amount that we can be dealing with is a private easement between the landowner and either Canyon Springs Preserve or the lot owners of Canyon Springs Preserve.
Just, let me interrupt you. So what you're saying is this is a private easement?
Yes.
Well, then we don't have any authority to get rid of it.
But it was platted. And because it was platted.
The county platted it.
County platted it?
County platted it. Primarily because there was a huge portions of section line with this development that were vacated, and when you plat and it's up against Forest Service, you provide additional access. When that was done, and the staff reports are very unclear about it, about that was the intent of this. It appears that it was, but it does not say specifically in the staff report that that's why this was created.
Okay, so
and at the time it was platted, Forest Service didn't even know about it.
If we abandon that, isn't the private easement still going to be there?
You would basically vacate that Forest Service access off the plat.
Whatever was platted by the county before would be vacated.
Okay.
The 8-foot minor drainage utility easement, that would remain.
So, because it's a private easement, you know, the subservient tenement is clearly my client's property. The dominant tenement is either Canyon Springs Preserve generally or the landowners. But our position is that who that is really is it doesn't matter at this point because of the Forest Service's position that you can't access that property. And because you can't access the property, the scope of the easement is only to step onto my client's property in order to access Forest Service, because Forest Service says you can't do that, then they don't have the right to enter onto the property. Secondly, the plat was subject to the planned unit development from 2006, and that planned unit development has a specific condition that any access to Forest Service is for exigent circumstances. So even if there's a private easement that is afforded to the landowners of Canyon Springs Preserve, it's subject to the PUD, which means they can't go emergency hike on Forest Service through this easement. And that's essentially the position of the applicants, is that the PUD and the Forest Service position call that there is really no right to enter the property at this point. So we would respectfully request that the commission approve the application and not continue to May. I can field any questions that you might have. I can address some of the questions as to the nature of the property onto the common area is very similar. It does get a little bit steeper, but then it slopes out even flatter than it is on my client's property in the common area. And as to your question about just moving the gate to common, the applicants would be fully in support of that. I can represent that they have spoken with the Forest Service, who would be in support of that at my client's cost. They would happily move the gate. The gate was purchased in 1999 by the Forest Service. They have the receipt, they own the gate, but they'd be happy to have it moved down to common area.
Questions for Jerry? I guess a comment, I'll go to Barb first.
If the commission approved this application, then the county would no longer have any involvement because that plat of the easement would be removed. Is that correct?
Well, I guess maybe going back to PJ, I'm not fully maybe understanding, if the county platted it or required it to be platted, isn't it public by that action? I mean, if it's a private easement, then like Ron said, then do we have jurisdiction? If it was created for a private reason.
I think Kinsley might be able to address that.
But if we
I don't want to play lawyer.
If we, the county government, forced it to be created, it seemed like that is for the public. Kinsley.
It actually has to have dedication language. So some sort of language on the plat that says either public or dedicated 66-foot access easement, something like that. And there is no language like that. So it's not for the general public. That is.
And I understand that for the general public, but I think some of the argument has been is it was created for that subdivision's landowners, which is still private then.
Yep, and I guess I did have that question, and I think it would be reasonable for you to want to get input from all of the individual property owners, whether or not they would be okay with it being vacated. So I think that is a concern, and I think that was part of the reason why they were all notified. But I guess it's something where it would be nice to have the nobles go to court and have some sort of a declaratory judgment determining whether or not this was indeed an easement for Canyon Springs, and they would be able to probably go through all of the history of when it was platted and look at the intentions of everyone to determine whether it was for the benefit of all the property owners in Canyon Springs or there was some other intention. But I don't know if that is something the nobles were going to do.
Sure, I can speak to that. The reason that we went through this avenue and this procedure is because it was platted by the county. And therefore, regardless of the fact that it was essentially a private easement, because it was put on by the county, we thought the proper avenue to have it removed and vacated was through the county. And that's the reason that we've gone through this procedure.
I guess a comment that you had that as I stated earlier, the concern I have is on timing. I mean, a lot of boards have a set schedule when they meet. A lot of boards even pay their board members for attendance, so I mean, if they call a special meeting, they have to publish it legally, and then they have to pay their board members, and you're busting their budget for your action. And so, I mean, that's why I was kind of asking, when's their normal meeting, and is that part of the reason we haven't got responses?
Sure, they don't have regular meetings. There has been a notice of this issue that was put out to all of the members, and there was some discussion at a road district and water district meeting. There is a difference of opinion on whether that was actually a matter at those meetings and whether that was a official vote. There actually hasn't been an official vote by the association, but they also don't have regular meetings. Notice was sent out to all the landowners of this issue.
I would assume they'd be required to legally at least have an annual meeting.
I would imagine that they have an annual meeting, but at this time, we don't have they don't have regularly monthly meetings of it to any extent.
You had to
Yeah.
start with a comment?
Can I ask a question? On
Yeah.
this exhibit that shows the 60-foot access easement, is that the language that was used on the original plan, Forest Service access easement?
Yes.
Because to me, that's a real compelling thing. The Forest Service is saying, we don't need the easement, we don't want the easement. That to me is like, well, then get rid of it, they don't care.
Right, and
or move it somewhere else, yeah.
And if that speaks to the chairman's position of whether it's a noun or an adjective, and if it's a Forest Service type, or if it's an easement to the Forest Service. It cannot be an easement to the Forest Service, because in order for it to be an easement to the Forest Service, it has to be a public grant of an easement, and it has to be open to the public, and there has to be a grant of the easement and acceptance by that easement from the United States government, and that has not occurred. There's no indication that anything even remotely close to that has occurred.
Mr. Chairman, I have never in my life, and I've been around here a long time, heard that the county filed an easement on behalf of some private individuals. How does that happen? I mean, if we file, number one, I've never seen us file an easement. Maybe we've told people they had to for the public or something, but I guess, I don't know how we end up filing easements.
I can speak to that. It's Title 11 is where the grant of an easement is allowed to be conducted by the recordation of a plat. And when the plat is recorded, that serves, and most of the time, and Selway is a case out of Lawrence County from 2003. Very similar occurrence. There was a plat done for a PUD that included a public R.O.W. on the plat. There was another easement on the plat that said future use. And the fight was whether that second plat was a public easement. And both of them were input, and pursuant to Title 11, that recordation of the plat created the easement. The first one was publicly used because it used the word public. The second one was a private easement because it didn't have those public words. And that private easement was created by the recordation of the plat. And that's all we're asking here, is that the county vacate that easement that was in the recordation that was a private easement.
I guess I would go back to, usually special easements like that don't appear lightly on the plat. So most landowners aren't going to want that unless there's a specific valid reason. And so, I mean, like, I still don't feel like we've been given the reason it was initially created, if everybody's saying, no, I don't want it. So there still had to be some reason. And I guess the other thing, and maybe I would, maybe more of, is a compromise maybe to at least, follow what Karen was saying as far as doing that, but I mean, continue this to give that an opportunity to see that if that's a viable plan before we vacate this, and then there's no point in no return.
Sure, and I understand the position, or the idea that we could continue to have further information, but it doesn't change the fact that there isn't anything at this point, because nobody can come in and access Forest Service. Nobody can step foot on the Nobles property because they can't get onto the land. Secondly, it's still controlled by the PUD, and they should only be able to get onto the land or use that for emergency access. So at this point, we're really not taking anything away from anybody. We're happy to move the easement, but conditioning it on removing this doesn't have any applicability because we aren't losing anything if we remove this, would be the only position that I would take with that.
Won't we have to see some agreement by the homeowners association, whoever owns the common lot? I mean, we just can't move an easement down there and say, okay, now it's down here in your land. So we would have to have that agreement from the homeowners association.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
I guess, I mean, like if right now the position is that no one can use it anyway, I mean, there would be civil action that could be taken if somebody's trespassing, if that's your interpretation. So I guess the timing of it, isn't there time to allow that process to see if what Karen suggested could work first before we take final action on abandoning
Sure,
an
we
easement?
could, if we had to do that, we obviously would be in agreement to continue and take that on. I think at this point, it's, the information before the commission at this point is that it's probably not necessary, but in exercise of extreme caution, we would be in support of that.
Mr. Chair.
Karen?
It seems to me that this easement, I mean, people expect to have access to the Forest Service, whether the Forest Service wants them to have it or not, is not the question. I think the people who live in Canyon Springs probably believe that they need that access, that when they bought their property, they would have that. So I would suggest that, that you pursue that, that avenue of trying to get them access through the common area, Lot 13 or Common Area 13. First, because right now I don't know that I could even, and I'm so with you guys, but I don't think I could support this without having another access easement somewhere else.
Lori?
But they do have access right now. They have access through the common area up to section line. So you're not, they have access right now. It's just not across their property.
The gate's not there.
Well, they can go down the section line to the gate. I mean, people do that all the time to get access to the Forest Service. They go across some public land, go down the section line, and go down to the gate. You're not taking away anything.
Right, and they're not going to be able to use the gate anyway, because the gate is locked, and there's no motorized access.
A person, but like
ostensibly.
foot traffic. You can either walk or you can lift your bike over the gate or whatever through the fence. I mean, yeah, you can't drive a car through it, but.
There's some pretty rough terrain out there, I guess. I don't know, can you physically do that?
I don't know. I know I can't.
You can walk. So if we go below, can I use your mouse?
Yes.
So if we go to, this is the common area lot, this area here, and this is my client's lot.
Section line.
And the section line. And this is a little bit steeper than it is right up here on the top, but as you come down to this point approximately here, it levels out even more level than it is on my client's. So everyone in Canyon Springs can walk onto Common and can step over the barbed wire fence right here.
They want to.
Is it labeled that it's a common lot? Does everyone know it's a common lot? They may think they're trespassing on somebody else's lot.
That I would have to defer to my client on whether it's.
Sorry. Because it looks like there's lots of common areas.
There's lots of common areas in here, and the property just, I'm sorry, my name's Brandon Noble, and own lot 67 with my wife Lindsay. Just to the east there's actually 3 acres of common area, and it's common knowledge that it's common area to the development, and actually they put out kind of maps, when they were identifying Canyon Springs and showing the different lots that's a common area, as well as many of the areas in between lots, in between the roads here. But right next to our property is 3 acres of common area, and as Jared says, it slopes gently at the bottom. And I'd also like to add that myself and the president of the HOA, Peter Wharton, and a member of the sanitary district had met with the Forest Service, Rodney Brown, to discuss this, because I was trying to explain to them the Forest Service position, which trying to repeat it secondhand just doesn't work very well. So we met with him. He explained their position to them. They understood it. We discussed several other areas that you could access Forest Service if they would wish to, for just walking purposes, not motorized vehicle. And one of the areas we discussed was the 3 acres next to our lot on the eastern boundary line of that, because it's gentle sloping. You can see the fence from the road through Canyon Springs, Emerald Ridge Road. And the Forest Service was not opposed to allowing access there. In fact, they'd even design a gate. It'd be at our expense to put in there, but they would be more than fine with that. He didn't see a reason anyway to have it through someone's private property when there's so much common area in the development that they can access anywhere. And as it's been mentioned, I mean, there's access now through those common areas. It's just if we wanted an actual walking gate, you know, we could put one in. So, I mean, there's plenty of areas to access where, and that's our point. And I do feel it was probably put there because that gate was existing, so why not put it right there? Well, when it was designed, there's so much common area. That's kind of the beauty of the development is you do have access to that Forest Service if you want it. So.
I'm still surprised it's 60 feet, though.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it's not clear if everyone who was a part of this at the time of the creation had the same intent, and should the intent have been to give Forest Service access at that point on a road through a 60-foot easement, they did it improperly, and it wasn't recorded, and it doesn't exist. So and the result of that is that it's potentially a private easement, and that would be the answer to the explanation of the why it's 66 foot. Because I don't think Mr. Schad, at the time that this was created, went through the proper procedures to either create a private, because typically you're going to create an agreement where that sets out the terms of what that private easement is, and that didn't happen either. So there is some ambiguity of what the intent was at the time.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak this matter today? Okay. Other questions? And staff's recommendation is staff's recommendation is to continue.
Well, just for discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve vacation of easement 1501 with the 5 conditions listed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Jim.
I really don't see that. The principal parties seem to be, once again, indifferent to this whole thing. The Forest Service doesn't care. They've got a number of options. The private members of the Canyon Springs have expressed, at best, indifference or support for it. It just seems to me that if this is a legal matter, then it's beyond our powers. In which case, if we make a judgment and someone disagrees with it, it'll have to be resolved in a court, evidently, if that's what it's going to come down to. So I don't see what's preventing us from making this vacation. I really, and I think Karen's notion of the gate seems to be the damning thing here. The gate's there, so it's, if we just move the gate and which seems to be perfectly acceptable to the Forest Service. I can't imagine ambiguity is on our side, in my judgment. I just can't believe that we would be in any way stepping out of bounds here, and I think this would facilitate this matter. So I would be in favor of supporting the approval of this.
Other comments? Yes. Comment I would have is I know we had speakers speaking against this, landowners, before, and they aren't here today, and I guess that's my concern is, did they get online and look at the staff report and expect this to be continued and didn't show up? That's maybe
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good point. Yeah.
For that reason, I'll probably oppose this because I think it should be continued to give others an opportunity if they thought this was going to be continued. We usually, there's no guarantee that we follow staff recommendation, and we often don't, but given that we had opposition last time speaking and there's no one here today, I guess I would think that they may have thought that this was going to get continued.
Mr. Chairman, is this final, PJ, or does it go to the commission?
It would still go to the commission.
Okay, so but there won't be any notice specifically having to be sent to these people. What I'm getting at is, there will be a week here that they still can come in and complain if they want to.
Yeah, good, very good point.
And Mr. Chairman, I do understand your position of they may not be here because they thought it was going to be continued, and that is the staff's recommendation. But we did also put in the staff report that if you chose to approve it, here are the conditions. So there was that, it may be discussed option in there.
I know, but, you know, a lot of people don't have the liberty to sit here for 2 hours, and so if they thought it was going to be continued.
Yep, well, I understand.
But I think Ron makes a very good point. They have opportunity at the county board. This is a recommendation, so. Anyway, we had a motion second. Any further discussion? Karen?
Mr. Chair, I guess I would urge you guys to move that gate if we vacate this easement. Just take it upon yourselves to do that, because that'll be a pretty clear indication to the people who think the easement is still there that it really isn't.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Takes us to item 12, County Board Report.
Item 12, the Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from the April 13th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting.
Items from the public. Anyone wishing to bring anything up from the public? Seeing none, go to items from staff.
Items from staff, number 14, just an update. The conditional use permit for Stratable Vacation Home Rentals, we did receive an appeal from a neighbor on the Planning Commission's decision, and this will be heard on May 11th at the Board of Commissioners meeting.
I'm just kind of curious, on a conditional use, we're the final unless it's appealed, so.
Yes.
So are they allowed to take reservations at this time or not?
Reservations mean?
Well, for.
For the vacation home.
For the vacation home rental. Are they operating under the approval, or are they operating on a hold basis based on the appeal?
We kind of discussed that a
My
little bit.
guess would be, if it's like in the law, as long as there's not a ordered stay of execution, they can take reservations.
Okay.
It's still valid until, you know, if we would have said, hold it, and pending the appeal, you can't do it. I don't know if we got that authority, but I'm guessing they can do it. But I don't know what BJ.
Staff discussed it, and that was our opinion as well, is it's basically someone's opinion. Right now, it's going to go before the board. We don't have any official notice that they can't. So we would allow them to operate as normal.
Karen?
PJ, do you know what the grounds for the appeal were?
It's a page long, but essentially the applicant does not feel that his concerns are have been properly addressed.
And did he say what his concerns were?
It's an adjacent
Traffic.
landowner.
Adjacent landowner.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been here before.
I know who it is.
Mr. What's his name?
He's been in opposition to it since the beginning.
No.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember. Thank you.
Anything else from staff?
Nothing further.
Items from membership?
I'll miss the May 11th meeting.
Yep, I got that.
Sounds like I'll miss
Okay,
them.
and I will miss the May or the
26th.
26th, and also the June 8th, or I think it is.
And I'll be gone June 8th also.
The 26th is the day after Memorial Day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a Tuesday.
God, I never go anywhere.
You're gone just one day or both?
I'm just gone the one time.
Okay.
just
I don't
the next
plan that
time.
I'm gone too.
Yeah, me neither.
I do so reluctantly.
I'm gone for the next 4 months.
Other items from membership? Hearing none, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We're adjourned.